I'm going to ask for the first slide, if that's okay. Well, how do you start? You start by taking an object out of your pocket and you put it down in front of you and you begin to tell a story. But what object do you take out of your pocket and what story do you tell? I have a story which is all about objecthood, all about what objects mean. And because of you, I have brought two objects, and I want them back. But pass them round. This is 1770. This is 1800, and I want them back. Because what they are these extraordinary, small, powerful little objects. Each of them tells their own story. They're funny, they're erotic, they're powerful and they're tragic. And each of these little stories, these little Japanese carvings, which I hope are being passed round, and I will get them back. Third saying. Tells a particular story, and I inherited them. I didn't intend to inherit them, but you never, ever intend to inherit anything. And when you do inherit something, it often has its own problems. Why do people hand things on? People hand things on to people they love because they say something about where they acquired them, because they say something important about a family. And sometimes they hand on objects in order to complicate people's lives. In this case, it has completely complicated my life. Because I inherit this extraordinary collection, and then I realize, after years, that I have to tell the story, and it's a complicated story, and the story isn't easy. But the story in some ways begins here on the Rue Monceau. It begins here in the Belle Époque, on a hill of golden houses. Houses which are owned by this extraordinary community, mostly of Jewish families that have arrived in Paris to make themselves known, to find a way of being in French society. And so they build big. They build in the manner of the Palazzo Grassi, a kind of palazzo I feel at home in. And into this extraordinary street comes this family that I am part of, the Efrussi family, a family. I'm going to have to stand up, do you mind? I can't sit down and get too excited. The Efrussi family, who are Jewish and they come from Odessa, and they have made their fortune in a nefarious way through grain. They're a terrible family. They've cornered the market in world grain and they've become millionaires. And so they send their children like Rothschilds. Half of them end up in Paris and half in Vienna. And in Vienna, in the 1870s, this family arrives. And amongst the family is the third son. And the third son is Charles Efrussi. The man who cannot understand money. The rest are bankers. He is the man who gets away because he loves art. Here he is, painted by his friend, at the back of the boating party. The banker. He is not the man who loves art, he is. And he's a rich young man in Paris. So what does he do? He's in a family house with an empty apartment. So he buys art. He buys Medici tapestries. He buys this extraordinary bed, and in the manner of the Nouveau Riche, he unpicks the M for Medici and puts E for Efrussi. You have to imagine being 22 with a Medici bed. And what else does he do? He buys this incredible carpet of the golden winds from the Louvre, Gobelin tapestries. And here, with this great golden carpet, he cuts it down to size for his apartment. Bravado. But he's a man who loves art and understands it, and he starts writing about art for the Gazette de Beaux-Arts. And then, in the manner of a young man, he buys the magazine. But what's in this apartment? There are extraordinary paintings. There's wonderful, beautiful Monet, which is in the National Gallery, and I've taken my children to stand in front of it and say, this isn't yours, this belongs to other people. And he buys Renoir, and he's extraordinary, he buys Renoir, he buys this which is in the Met, which I want back, and then he buys this incredible, incredible, beautiful, which apparently is in Venice at the moment. Yeah, perhaps we could have that as a going home present. The extraordinary bundle of asparagus, and the price is 800 francs, but in a moment of generosity he gives 1,000. And then on Tuesday, this arrives from the artist with the note on the back saying this one has slipped from the bundle. Because he's a man who loves art and loves artists. And the reason that this matters, not only is it because it's a moment of enormous tenderness, a moment of real friendship around art, but this is a story that I remembered reading, and of course, it's in Proust. Because one of those people who are going up that staircase in the Rue Monceau, 81 Rue Monceau, going up to that apartment and talking to Charles, is the young Marcel Proust, coming to see this collection of paintings. And when you read à la recherche, all those paintings are in Charles's apartment. And Charles Evrecy is one of the models of Charles Swann. Now, I ask you, if you begin to write a book about memory and family, and you discover that Proust is involved, it really slows you down a lot. Because I thought, in my naivety, that I could write this story. That I could write this story about this man and his collection, this extraordinary, tender, Parisian art collector who had bought this collection of Netscape, which I hope are going around this room. This collection of Netscape to impress his lover, because he loved Japonism, because the writers and the artists he was living with and amongst all love Japanese art. He buys it in that way. And I thought, in my naivety, that I could spend 2 months writing about Paris and the Belle Époque and Charles, and then move on. And a year in, I find myself in a library, reading the Gazette de Beaux-Arts, completely in love with this man, completely entranced by this person who understood about the resonance, Martin, of art. What you put in a room and how you talk about it, how much room and air it displaces. And I realized that if I'm going to be true to this story that I've inherited, I have to take the time. I have to go and find these pictures, find the carpets, get into the houses and the apartments, and spend time. Because, of course, the story doesn't end there. In 1899, Charles gives the collection away. He gives this incredible collection of 264 Netscape to his cousin, Victor, his favorite cousin, who is living here on the Ringstrasse, in the Viennese version of the Rue Monceau. This is the family house, and it's appalling. It's the size of the Grassi, but not, I'm afraid to say, quite as well decorated. Because this family house, this Ringstrasse Palais, built in the same way that the Rue Monceau was built by Jewish families, is an extraordinary, extraordinary statement of a Jewish family who have decided that they are not wandering Jews, that they are going to show that they belong in a city and that they're staying put. And it's a house which is full of marble, it's full of extraordinary painted ceilings, just like your piano nobili here, but it's also full of hidden stories, because in this house, which my father partly grew up in, these extraordinary paintings on the ceilings aren't just terrible cupids and nymphs and large ladies with harps, they are also, in this case, coded pictures of Zionist history. This is Esther being crowned as the Queen of Israel.